Hey guys, another lunchtime lecture. Decided to work through lunch because I heard a story today. A guy told me that he went to vote and got in the voting booth and got to looking at the ballot and said, I really don't like either one of these presidential guys. I know that in Alabama, Trump's going to win and win by a landslide, so I guess I'm free to do whatever I want. So we ended up voting for a guy named Joe, right? Jo Jorgensen. And so he goes home and tells his wife, and his wife's like, never heard of Jo Jorgensen. Let's look it up. And they get shocked. Turns out it's Jo Jorgensen, and Jo is a woman. They're like, there was a woman on the ballot? Yeah, there's been a woman running for president almost every year since like 1900. They're there. People just don't look for them, right? It's a third party. So what's the deal with these third parties? Everybody believes a third party vote is a waste of your vote. So what I want to do today is look at third parties. Why do they exist? Why do we put up with them messing around in our two-party system, right? And what's their purpose? So let's start at the beginning. 1848. We have a third party come onto the scene called the Free Soil Party, led by Martin Van Buren. And what they wanted was, as America expanded west, they wanted to block slavery. Yeah, the Free Soil Party, we're going to ban slavery. So anybody who did not like slavery came running to this party. The abolitionists, the black vote in the North, obviously there was not a black vote in the South, and they start to build and build and build. Well, when they don't win elections, they start to get absorbed by other people. And by 1860, this party had absorbed several others, and the little smaller parties had band together to a brand new abolitionist party called the Republican Party. And they're going to choose Abraham Lincoln. Right? You guys all know how this works. He's going to win the presidency with less than 40% of the popular vote. He's only going to get like 39.8%. But the one major party, the Democrats, who control the South and all the farming regions, had split into the Constitutional Democratic Party, who was pro-slavery at all cost, even if it means secession, and the Constitutional Union Party, which was pro-slavery, but more important than protecting slavery was protecting the Union. And that will split 60% of the nation, and this crazy third party people will come in and take over the leadership. Yeah, that's where third parties exist. See, the point of third parties is you're supposed to lose. We know you're going to lose. But these other guys, these Democrats and Republicans, look how close this election is right now. We're talking 4,000 or 5,000 votes in some states. A big blowout is 200,000 votes in this current election. So you know what's going to happen to whoever loses? They're going to immediately turn to all of the people who did not vote for them and did not vote for the other party and go, okay, what can I do to make you get on my side next time? So they're going to start looking at the Green Party and the Libertarians and the Constitutional parties and all those other guys, hopefully not the Natural Law Party. Those guys are wackos. Sorry, I'm not supposed to give commentary, but it's there. And they're going to start trying to pick up pieces of their agenda, just enough to draw people over to my side. Let me give you an example of another example, actually, of how that works. Let's go to 1892. There's a Populist Party. Populist Party starts with the disenfranchised people of the Midwest. There's not a whole lot of money coming in. The railroads are charging small farmers a lot more to ship their stuff on the railroad than large corporate farms. And they're gonna band together, create that Omaha platform, all the stuff for your AP students, and they're gonna create their own party and run for president. James B. Weaver will lead the farmers of the South, the blacks of the South, who were gonna be farmers but had no other representation, the people of the Midwest, all of the people left behind by the businesses in the other two parties. They're going to push for regulating the railroads. They want the government to take over and regulate these big, huge industries. I think we all agree with government regulation on, what do we call those, utilities? Yeah? Got that one? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Free silver. They want more money in the economy. Let's get off the gold standard. Let's free up the cash and send it around. Let's get the money moving in the economy. They want women's suffrage. They're the only party pushing for women's suffrage. They want a federal income tax to redistribute the wealth. You've heard of all this kind of stuff, right? Some of this stuff is actually on the ballot right now. What's going to happen is they're going to lose, and the other parties will start picking up what they think they can take. Most of that will be absorbed by the Democrat Party. Some of it will be absorbed. Women's suffrage will go both ways. We're going to try to split this party up and bust them up so they're not a threat again. But everything on their agenda eventually ends up in a major party's agenda and gets done. And over time, this will merge with another third party called the Progressive Party. I know you guys have heard of the Progressive Party. Teddy Roosevelt, the Bull Moose Party, right? You can't stop a bull moose. These guys are going to shake America up. Third parties bring you such big names as Theodore Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln, William Jennings Bryan, Cross of Gold speech, Scopes monkey trial, yeah, remember all that stuff? Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader, in case you don't remember, in the 2000 election, Gore versus Bush, he came down to Florida. What happened in Florida? Ralph Nader drew 2 million votes because he was, as he called himself, fiscally conservative, socially liberal. We want to shrink the government. We want to free the people. Where do you think that's going to draw? Well, they see the social aspects. That's going to pull lots of Democrats over. The financial aspects, well, the Republican ones already had that covered. But the Democrats were coming off of Bill Clinton. They were still very conservative. They weren't today's Democrats. So the liberal, more socially liberal, will pull off of the Democrats into Nader's party, and Gore will lose Florida. The Democrats will be furious. Oh my God, you cost Gore the election. And what did they do? They picked up all of his social agendas. The fiscal agendas were already picked up by the Republicans, but they're going to take all of the pro-gay rights, all of their other social liberal things, and they're going to pull that over to the Democrat side, drawing all of his voters over. And in the next election, you know what happened? Florida had switched sides. They had changed those voters over and absorbed Ralph Nader's party, and he got everything he wanted, and he lost the election. And this is how this stuff works. Everything I'm about to name originated with the third party. That party lost, and it was absorbed by a bigger party. You ready? All right, here we go. Women's suffrage. Women's suffrage was introduced to you by the populist and the socialist. Eventually picked up by the larger progressive party, and then eventually picked up by Republican parties. Okay? All right. Going back to the early 1900s. Look it up if you have to. Child labor laws. 1904. Brought to you by the socialists and the progressives. Get the kids out of the mines, get them in the classrooms. Get them off the farms, get them in the classrooms. The point is it would drive up wages for adults. As long as we have cheap labor coming in, no one's going to hire the expensive labor like skilled adults. They're going to hire the little kids. This is the same thinking we use for blocking immigration, well, for regulating immigration now. As long as cheap labor exists, the trained labor is going to have a very low value. So Trump is now pushing that same thinking to drive up the earning of the American people, right? Still going, still alive in politics. Let me go faster. 40-hour work week, Fair Labor Standards Act, brought to you by the socialists and the progressives. How about them apples? Public regulation of utilities, your water, your power, your gas, all of that brought to you by the progressives and the populists. All right. Social insurance. We now call it Social Security. It was introduced by the progressives, picked up by the Democrats, changed the name, bam, you got it. Everybody is going to enjoy their Social Security. Limits on campaign contributions started as a third party. 8-hour workday. Workers' comp insurance. Open records for congressional committee meetings. No more secret meetings in Congress. Women's suffrage, we talked about that one. Recall elections, where you can recall your governor. California, anyone? Actually, I think Virginia, several other states have been doing this. Inheritance tax. Bet you can't guess where that came from. The Socialist Party, but still. Democrats picked it up, and it's there. Farm relief and subsidies. Primary elections. All of this stuff comes from the third parties. Public schools, third parties. Prisons as reforms, but not a holding tank, third parties. Cleaning up the environment, third parties. Yeah, and so this is the point of the third parties. Y'all remember Ross Perot's Reform Party? Remember that? He picked up something like 16% of the total vote, and he really did a number on George Bush, allowing Bill Clinton to become president. A little guy from Arkansas nobody had ever heard of. Bill Clinton ran with rebel flags on his banners and stuff. But Ross Perot had drawn enough votes away from the Republican Party for Bill Clinton to squeak it out. Later on, what happened to his party? don't know if you guys are aware of this, but in 2000, Donald Trump ran for president in that party. And he came in on Ralph Nader's agenda. I'm going to be a fiscal, monetary conservative, social liberal. He was for gays openly serving in the military. He was for gay marriage. He was for a lot of these very liberal Democrat platforms. But what happened was, as he walked into the room, a bunch of people started leeching onto him and going, hey, this guy's got a shot. And people that he didn't want to be associated with started jumping into his third party. Kind of like if you wear a sweater through a room and lint that used to be other people's sweaters jumps off onto yours, and pretty soon your sweater is covered with stuff you never wanted on it. So he will get the endorsement of David Duke, who is a popular politician in Louisiana at the time, was also in the Ku Klux Klan. And Trump immediately disavows this guy. I want nothing to do with this guy. Hey, who put him in my campaign? I don't want anything to do with this guy. And then he's going to pick up the socialist, what do you call that? They're going to like him. Nomination, not nomination. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, yeah, good. I think you know the word. You're probably all screaming it at me and I can't hear you through the computer. And then he's going to pick up several others to where he eventually goes, you know what? This is not who I want to be associated with. This is not my platform. And he will drop out. And that's when we'll see Nader who really step in and fill in the gaps and stuff. And we saw how that ended up, right? So this is how third parties act. This is what third parties are about. This is why they exist. They're supposed to lose, and your ideas get absorbed by the bigger parties over on the side. I'm going to finish up with a quote from Bill Maher. Most people hate this guy. I mean, sometimes he says what you like. Most of the time he doesn't. He's the comedian, political guy on late night TV. Oh yeah, can't stand the guy until I can. He's famous for saying, it's silly that a country that prides itself in choice only allows two choices. I got to give it to him. He's got a good point. But if you want to be heard, get a third party, raise a lot of noise. Somebody big will absorb you next election. It's a waiting game. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed that. Look some stuff up. Figure out what you really want and vote that way.